Welcome back. I'm talking to Andrew Johnson about Mars. Now, in the 1950s, Andrew, there was a think tank set up called the Brookings Institute, or the
Brookings Institution,
Institution, and they considered the impact on humanity if life was discovered in the solar system or in any of these missions, and they essentially concluded that we should cover it up if it was found, because the implications would be too disruptive to humanity. And it seems to me that that's what's happened when they've discovered the microbial life on Mars, because to me there's no doubt of these experiments that they have found life on Mars, and they've not announced it, albeit microbial in this instance. Now, what about structures on Mars and possibility that intelligent life has been there? We spoke about the secret space program last week.
We did.
And we are both of the view that it's quite likely that some secret group has already been to Mars and possibly has bases on Mars. But is there any evidence of this?
Well, I mean, we heard in that clip from William Hamilton that he said the chap that he'd been in contact with, the colonel in the Air Force, had been on the ship to Mars and he'd gone to an underground base. And at the end of that clip, William Hamilton said, oh, but we don't see any cities on Mars, we don't see any structures. Well, again, I encourage people to go and look for one particular picture. Well, there's a number of particular ones, not all of which we're going to show here, but there's one called the Inca City. If you Google Inca City and Mars, you will find a 1972 Mariner image, and that's NASA's name for it. They call it the Inca City, and you can see rectilinear structures. But what I'd like to draw people's attention to is this image we've got on the screen here, which I first came across, I think, I came across it on Jason Martell's website called X-Facts. I came across it in around about 2004, and it was a very similar image to this one. This is actually a newer image. This was taken in 2008, and I use this image as my internet avatar and so forth. And this is, they call it on the HiRISE website. HiRISE is the name for the high resolution imaging satellite experiment, I think, or something. Yeah, high resolution imaging science experiment. It's right in front of me and I didn't read it.
So this is the University of Arizona, which has access to all of, some of NASA's images then?
Yeah, I mean, they've developed some of the imaging technology on the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter probe, which is a high resolution camera on it. And you can see there, when I first came across this image, I think in 2009, when I knew they'd taken this, they'd rephotographed this dome structure, as I call it. They had a page on their website, and you can see the caption there: crater with textured mound in central Acidalia planitia, and then it gives you the image number.
So they call it a textured mound.
Textured mound.
Okay.
And that was what was being shown on their website, and that was sometime, I think, let's see, in that was 2009 on their website. That's how their website was in 2009, May the 11th. And I was discussing this with my brother, who's not into this stuff, and he asked me what this peculiar dome image was. So I said, oh, here's the link to the website, and I gave him the link to this page as I thought it was. And then I found that they changed that page to this. Right. In other words, they've redesigned the website and such, and move around the labels and the menus and so on. But the actual image number is the same. And the caption is the same, which says crater with textured mound in central Acidalia planitia. But as you can see, the dome is gone. So
they might have done that deliberately. It might just be some kind of error. But you can actually find the image if you click on one of the other links. Yeah,
that's right. If you go down to the image at the bottom,
it's still there. They haven't removed it altogether.
It's like a form of soft censorship. The image hasn't gone, but it's less obvious than it was. And one of the images appears to be kind of blacked out, but the other one, the thing is there. So you've got to have a little look for it.
Is there any indication as to the size of that?
Yes, I mean that dome is 530 meters across.
530 meters.
Yeah, I measured that on a previous version of the image.
It's sort of bigger than a sports stadium then?
Yeah, it's pretty big. Right. And it appears to be associated with other structures in that area as well, because if you're going down that area in like a vertical line or sort of south, you will see that there are other structures beneath that dome, which I've got some pictures of.
Now, you're calling it a dome. if that had been made by intelligent life, wouldn't the texture on the top be uniform, like hexagonal or something like that? It looks like it's natural as opposed to man-made or intelligence.
I understand what you're saying. I think the overall shape of the structure to me looks man-made, but if you look at this higher resolution image, where you can see like it's got some type of covering, which looks like it does look like some sort of large ice sheets that have formed onto it or something like that.
Looks like ripples on a pond.
It does look like that. It does look like ripples.
If that's 500 meters across, then they're very, very big ripples.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe sort of 10, 15 meters across or something like that. I don't know. Right. So to me, if you wanted my honest opinion of that, I'd say it is an artificial structure, but overlaid on that, you've had some type of, like stalagmites grow on Earth or something like that.
Some natural phenomenon on top of it.
There's some deposits, there's some deposits over the top of it.
And NASA themselves, or the University of Arizona, are calling it a mound because, for me, I can't determine whether that's concave or convex or even flat, but they're calling it a mound. So they're saying that
if you look at the what's called the MOLAR data, which is the Mars Orbiting Laser Altimeter, which was on Mars Global Surveyor, they do have a relief map for that.
Right. All right. Okay.
It's not. They've got.
And
more
it is three-dimensional. Data. It comes up.
It does appear to be a convex structure sticking up. But you can't get hold of that radar data. They do seem to have classified that data.
They've classified it.
The MOLAR data.
Now, you sent this image and another image to a geologist because you were wanting to enlighten geologists on Earth to these structures just to get their expert opinion as to whether they think that's a naturally occurring thing, albeit on another planet.
Right.
Just tell us about that.
Yeah, well, that was in 2004 when I developed quite a strong interest in this, and I decided to do, just a little bit of finding out. So
here are two images that you found very peculiar from NASA that you sent to this geologist guy. Just tell us what happened then. Right,
so just to explain briefly the one on the right, which we haven't discussed yet, this image is of a structure, I forget the exact location, it's not too far from Olympus Mons, but it's basically a structure which is 3.1 miles long. The longest section of this is about 3.1 miles long. So these were two very interesting images that I'd come across on various websites. So I sent these at random to 42 geologists. I just searched for like university geologists.
As you do.
As you do, and plucked out 42 email addresses that were on university websites and so on, and I ended up getting 3 responses, and I sent them these 2 images but no other information. I didn't tell them where they come from, so that I was waiting for them.
So you didn't say they were from Mars?
No, I didn't say what they were from. I just said these were geological structures or something. Can you give me any more information about what processes might form these geological structures? So the first question they should have asked me is, where did these images come from? What's the scale? So I needed them to ask that question, and then I would give them the information, which is what I did. And I got a couple of responses, and I wrote back to them. And I sent them the links. I sent them the links to the NASA website and the USGS website where these images are hosted, and. Anyway, so one guy, I kind of, obviously latched it. I got his curiosity going. He wrote back to me. I sent him the links, and then he wrote back to me, and he said, "These 2 images from the surface of Mars are certainly puzzling and have been floating around UFO web pages for some time. I am sorry, but I do not believe in big conspiracy theories and that the government is trying to hide something from us concerning Mars or any other planet." But that wasn't the question I asked him. Whether these images...
You weren't even suggesting there was a conspiracy.
Not
You're
at
just
all.
asking him to explain some of the geology of Mars. Simple question.
Right, exactly. And so, he said a few other sort of platitudes, and at the end he said, "Good luck with your investigations." And here I am, just an amateur researcher. He's a geologist. Doesn't he want to investigate these images? For his own interest. I'd obviously, sort of piqued his interest. But he's basically running away from the evidence, which is a common theme with this sort of research. So my point, in saying this and bringing this up, is that if we get the most interesting images, the most inexplicable ones, if the scientists are just going to ignore those, then why are we spending all this money on these research missions? If all the interesting data is going to be put on one side, marginalised, not talked about, attempted to be debunked, as they did with Gilbert Levin.
Yeah, like the Viking mission.
Like the Viking mission.
Life experiments.
Right.
Okay. Now, another area of Mars, which people talk a lot about and possibly being designed, is the Cydonia area. Can you just give us an overall description of why that area is considered by many to be artificial?
Well, of course, Cydonia is this region where we have the face structure, or what appears to be a face. And again, it is claimed that the higher resolution images from 2001 onwards, I mean, the face came about as a result of Viking images in I think 1978 or 79. And they got into all the newspapers, all the TV programs and so on. And then they said in 2001, when we had Mars Global Surveyor, MGS, they claimed that these images essentially proved the face was just a pile of rocks. It was a geological feature. I don't necessarily agree with that. But then in the Cydonia region, one of the peculiar things which David Percy had pointed out, I think he's written more about this in his book 2/3, but the most striking thing of all for me was that if you take a segment of Cydonia and overlay it with Avebury in Wiltshire, with the stone circle there, you get a precise correspondence between three geological features, and we'll show that correspondence.
We'll take a look at that. So
And
just describe this diagram for us, Andrew.
Yeah, so this was actually an image that I made. I got the Cydonia image from a website, and I then overlaid this with a Google aerial view.
Right, so that's Silbury Hill and Avebury itself, which is in a stone circle.
Yeah, stone circle, and they've got this sort of a ditch around the stone circle in Avebury. And if you overlay these two images, there are three geological features. We have the circle of Avebury matches up with this sort of crater feature or whatever it is on Cydonia. We have some type of mound.
I can see the two features there, Andrew. What's the third one?
And the third one is just to the left of the crater. We've got like some type of mound, and that matches up with a group of trees.
Just point to that.
Matches up with a group of trees in Avebury. Like there's a sort of the perimeter of trees around this feature in Avebury. And if you look carefully at this image, I'm told, I haven't checked this, but there are 1,000 points of correspondence if you look at them carefully.
Right.
And the scale is 14:1. So what is 1 metre at Avebury is 14 metres on Cydonia.
Right, so it's 14 times bigger on Mars.
Yeah, correct. So I mean, I don't know. That's what I understand of the measurements.
Right.
So it's very peculiar.
Right. I know that Alan Wilson, in his books, he has correlated the mounds in South Wales to map to the stars. So they're mapping out first magnitude stars. Do you think there's any astronomical connection to the Cydonia landscape?
I've heard various things, but again, it's not something I've studied in depth to make any conclusions about. But clearly, there is a correspondence between Avebury and Cydonia.
And what's your opinion on the five-sided pyramid?
Again, I think it is probably some type of artificial structure, but I haven't really studied it enough to know, what the significance would be.
But you would say that these are remnants. They're sort of like the pyramids or something from the dim and distant past. They're not something which is being used now.
I don't think so. Again, we've got limited information to go on, but my feeling is that they are indeed ancient structures.
Now,
Yes.
you did show me one other image, which was an artist's impression of these sort of tunnels, if you like. Obviously, they may not be tunnels, but a structure which shows sort of sticking out of the night. Can you bring that one up?
Well, we can get that image. This is one. So people have said there are glass tubes on Mars, and this is one of the typical images. This is about 1 mile long.
So is there any geological explanation for that, for those sort of
not that I've
arches?
heard. Not that I've heard. I mean, it's not, the picture itself is a little bit unclear, but it does indeed look like we've got some reflections going on there with some type of bracing on these tubes. Really have no idea what these structures are.
So NASA don't make a statement as to what that is, right?
Not really. I mean, they've tried to claim it's just what they call pareidolia,
Right.
which is this pattern matching that you do. You see when you look at a cloud, it looks like a teddy bear or something.
Simulcray, I think they call it. Is it?
Possibly that might be another name
so there's an actual artist's impression that someone's.
That's right. Yeah. So I looked at this and I found this picture that is this some type of transit system going above and below the surface of Mars.
Is that taking it a bit far?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'd need to see it more close up. I'd like to see if we've got any of the newer high resolution images from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. But when I saw this image, I thought, well, that's not quite right because the artist has used the red sky. So I did a bit of my own correction to that image, and I feel that's what it should look like.
All right then, Andrew. Well, thanks for your insights. Fascinating subject matter, and hopefully we will know the truth one day about Mars and the Moon and just what is going on in this alleged secret space program. But thanks for speaking to us, and it just remains for me to say, believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. I'm Richard D. Hall. Good night. Richplanet TV is coming to a town near you. In May 2013, I will be travelling around the UK speaking at the following places: Gateshead, Glasgow, Leeds, Liverpool, Birmingham, Weston-super, Southampton, Reading and London. I'll be covering recent UFO reports, which is not to be missed, and exposing a range of issues you won't find discussed on mainstream TV. Get ticket details from the richplanet.net website.